Good evening, everybody. This is a Huge Pop Entertainment. My co-host Bill Struthers over here dealing with his action figures. There you go. See it in the background. Myself, Huge Pop. Below we have a guy that used to be on the he goes to the dark side of the ring, kind of like the Gangrel kind of feel. He wrestled for Rocky Mountain Pro RMP. Welcome to the show. He debuted in 2004. Welcome to the show, Ronin, if I got that name right, if he's going to correct me if I didn't. So welcome to the show, my friend.
It's my pleasure, gentlemen. Good evening.
Good evening. Did I get that name? It was Ronin, right?
Ronin is perfect.
Hey, man, I got it. So first of all, I love your gimmick, man. I love your Vampiro type stuff. And that was one of my favorite things growing up, watching TV, Gangrel and with Christian and Edge. And I don't know if that's where you got your love for wrestling at, but that was a great time of my life. So I'm gonna ask the question: when you were growing up, what was your great time of your life when you're getting into wrestling?
Oh, let's see. I probably was a wrestling fan far back, further than I'm able to remember these days. But for as long as I can remember, I've always enjoyed watching wrestling, going back to the days of watching WWF on Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, the old recap shows, even a little bit of WCW, and they were running on the Superstation on TBS. Then eventually, of course, Monday Night Raw and the like came along, and it's kind of went off from there.
All right. Bill.
All right. So what made you get into wrestling as a profession itself? Other than being a fan, what was the spark of it?
Well, aside from being a fan, something that I always have had a bit of a creative streak in me. As a kid, I always loved to read, draw. Of course, having wrestling figures and such growing up like everybody else. And I was always looking for some ways to express myself and just do something that I enjoyed, something I could really push myself in, and I just took a shot.
So in the independence, there's a lot of long road driving. I'm sure. You know what I'm talking about. You're in the business. What was the longest road trip you've had to go, and what was the outcome? Was it rewarding at the end, or was it just, oh my God, this is stupid?
Well, aside from driving from where I was originally living all the way out to Colorado, and getting my start, we're working regularly, which that was probably, I think, close to about a 30-hour drive, driving cross country. But as far as actual road trips, working shows goes, probably the longest ones when I worked for a small company up in Minot, North Dakota, of Northern Outlaw Wrestling. That was on average, I'd say maybe around 14, 15 hours, give or take, with occasional stops for gas, food, and what have you. But those are definitely some interesting rides with 4 or 5 people packed in a car, plus all our gear. But it was definitely worth it because aside from the fact that they actually paid us pretty good, it was usually a double shot. We drive out, I'd say probably middle of the night Thursday, get there sometime Friday. We get ourselves all set up, meet everybody. They paid for hotel rooms for everyone. I think there were probably still, I don't know, 3 or 4 of us, or probably all of us crammed into one room, if I recall correctly. So we worked 2 shows, Friday night, Saturday night. Pretty much after that second show was over, of course, we had to all head on back home because we had regular day jobs to do.
Right. So now, is there any like funny road stories you can share, or is that not something you can do?
Oh, absolutely. There's one that always comes to mind that I will never cease to tell if the opportunity arises. This
All
is on a trip where me, a couple of guys in the name of Eric and Anderson Angel and Romeo, we were driving out to a company in Amarillo, Texas. Where we weren't even out of the state by the time this happened. Where we're driving, just driving down the highway. We decide we're gonna make a stop, get some breakfast and whatnot. We stop at a light. Light turns green. Car ahead of us is just sitting there. So I believe it was probably, I think it might have been Eric Angel who was driving. Goes and hits the horn to get the guy to move, as you do. Eventually, the guy does start to move and has the nerve to, pardon me, to actually stick his arm out of the sunroof and flip us off before driving off. Now, of course, but a bunch of guys early in the morning getting ready to go wrestle. Probably not the smartest thing to do because it definitely would not take much to kind of get us all keyed up. So Eric decides to speed up. We pull up next to him, and we all start flipping him off, and we drive away. Doesn't take long for us to realize the guy is following us because obviously he got all upset.
Right.
I can't remember who said maybe we should just stop, whatever, and we eventually decided, nah, we're just gonna do what we're doing. So we pull into the parking lot of the supermarket that we were going to. The guy in this really beat the hell looking car, Pontiac or something like that. I've never been a car guy, so he essentially pulls up right behind us, thinking he's gonna box us in, thinking he's messing with a bunch of kids. So as soon as we stop the car, we all get out. So we got two essentially, just is what it is, two black guys, a Hispanic guy, and then me. 8 o'clock in the morning, even though I already had my contacts in, I had my pretty much knee-high combat boots on. And as soon as we all get out of the car, you can tell this guy is just mentally crapping himself because he realizes he just made a very big mistake. And he panics. He tries not to show it, but we can tell. He panics, acting like he was following us because he was going to apologize because his car was not wanting to move. So he wanted to say how sorry he was. Of course, we know it was full of crap. And ironically enough, as he finally leaves, his car actually does have trouble starting. So obviously, he's panicking more and more as we're they're watching. Eventually, he peels off. The guy looked like a Walmart Jimmy Buffett, raggedy Hawaiian shirt and the full nine. So as soon as he peels off, we just start dying laughing as we're going into the supermarket, and that definitely got our road trip off to a pretty good start. And that's one of those memories that I'm sure no amount of head trauma can ever get rid of.
Nice. I want to take care of some things in the comment section. Thank you for that story, by the way, Ronin. Who's in the house? It's Adrian Whisper. Adrian Whisper is a promoter that I follow. I do stuff with in Panama City Beach, Extreme Impact Wrestling. We'll have a couple of those guys on the show next week. Salazar and Bubba Shaddix. What a crazy Bubba Shaddix guy he is. He's from Alabama. He's a trip, man. Check that out. I have a question for a fan, Dan W6F9S. Thank you guys for coming on the YouTube channel. Hit the follow button. Help Bill and I grow the channel. His question is for Ronin. What was your inspiration for the Ronin persona? And like other wrestlers, have you ever had a different personality? Example, Cactus Jack, Dude Love, Mankind.
Very good question. Well, it's a mix of different things. The name I got from I think it was 1997 John Frankenheimer film of the same name, Ronin. Robert De Niro, Jean Reno. Basically, it was meant to be a modern retelling of the 47 Ronin, dealing with the former CIA operatives, mercenaries, and the like. I remember going to see that movie when it came out with my dad because he loved those kind of movies, and so did I. And I found it to be such a great film. And then within the film, they talk about the legend of the 47 Ronin, which is something that I found incredible. Just the whole legend, well, not legend, of course, because they were real people, but the legend that it became, the sense of honor and duty to their master, despite everything that had happened and their plans to take revenge, is something that kind of always stuck with me. And the idea of a Ronin as being a samurai who, for one reason or another, has no master. And I've always been a bit of an iconoclast, a bit of a loner. That as my father would say, I've had a habit of just doing things my own way for to varying degrees of success. So that name always stuck with me. And of course, growing up in the late 90s into the 2000s, when the wrestling video games really became what they were, with creating your own wrestlers, first thing, of course, as we all did, we put ourselves in. I use that name, and it carried me through ever since. As far as the persona itself, that is just a result of just me being me, because I was actually, in no other way to put it, I was simply born a vampire. I had what we call an awakening in my teenage years, realizing just exactly what I was, how different I am. Eventually, I started to find other people within the vampire culture, the vampire community, and I decided to essentially just take my natural personality, my natural identity, apply that to professional wrestling, and just simply crank the volume way up. I get a lot of influences from, of course, the fashion, the music, my many years spent in the clubs, Jersey, New York. And so I incorporated that into things like, of course, my interest music, my outfits, and a lot of my own personality. I just simply turn up the volume, as a lot of the best personas are. And of course, I've just lived that way ever since. I've never been shy about telling people just exactly who I am, what I am. Of course, there are a lot of people that are more towards the aesthetic, the fashion aspect of it. We have a lot of different names for different associations within the vampire community. Nothing against them. So some people are purely in it for the fashion, for just the mystique. But there are some of us that truly live the life because this just is who we are. As far as other personas, I've toyed with a couple over the years for a couple of different reasons, mainly just to be able to do something different here and there. The first one I came up with was the Great Ronin, which was my tribute to the Great Muda, because I was always a big fan of his, and decided to do that as something a little different. The other persona I came with, going back to my Jersey roots, was actually a masked character where I call myself the Misfit Jimmy Leeds, because I was a huge Misfits fan going way back, and throwing in the name Jimmy Leeds is one of the purported names of the legendary creature that we call the Jersey Devil. So I decided to put a few different things together and do that as something a little different.
All right, Bill.
So you've done 17 years of indie wrestling. You've hit lots of promotions through lots of states. What's some of your favorites?
Let's see. Northern Outlaw Wrestling up in North Dakota, they're definitely one of my favorite. Just because the crowds were incredible. They always drew really well. A lot of incredible talent that came through, one of whom is actually Scarlett Bordeaux, it's really awesome to see how she's come along in the later years and being able to make it to the big times. Always happy to see people that I've come across over the years and kind of see them take that next step. Additionally, the pay was really good. I can't deny that. So they paid good. They paid for our hotels. A lot of great people to work with. Merch sales were always amazing. So it's always nice when you go on a road trip and you don't find yourself in the red by the time you get home. As far as local companies, I've worked for a good handful here and there. Rocky Mountain Pro overall, I'd have to say, is my best experience, because they really try to help people learn how to work more of a TV style and really help people to plan towards taking that next step, if you're serious about being a professional wrestler, you want to be able to work bigger companies, learning how to work towards things like the hard cams, we're working towards times, not going over in your matches, just learning how to really adapt to, to TV based platform. That is something that they really do and did excel at. I'm sure they still do. Fortunately, I just haven't had the time to really keep up, but they definitely have done a lot for wrestling in the States. But of course, every company that has come and gone in Colorado has definitely made its contributions, whether it's the talent, certain matches, shows. So there's definitely a lot of history of wrestling in Colorado.
So I'm going to ask a question. You can say, no, I don't want to answer that, but it could be whatever. Do you ever feel when you were doing your wrestling for different promotions, do you ever feel promoters took advantage of their talent and didn't pay them well? And did that produce a crappy show?
As far as it contributing to shows, I can't say that it's affected the final product just from what I saw with my own eyes. But as far as taking advantage, that's something I think that kind of goes without saying in this business, whether it's on purpose or not, because there's really not a lot of money to be had. Everybody's getting by the skin of their teeth, whether it's the promoters or the talent. And a lot of times, sacrifices are made. People get shortchanged. A lot of times, the majority, I can honestly say, there's never any. I've never seen any malice in it, except for one time. Probably the last time I ever worked a lucha show. I can't even remember if it even had a name other than just the crappy flyer they put together. Particular show, if I recall correctly. No, well, I do recall correctly. I know I didn't get paid. I'm pretty sure nobody got paid. And I believe the promoter actually disappeared before the show even ended. So that's definitely the one time I can honestly say I was legitimately just maliciously stiffed. And of course, I wasn't the only one, which of course doesn't really soften the blow at all. But that was definitely kind of a negative negative moment, to say the least. Which, the fact that someone actually does skip out like that, I've certainly heard of other promoters elsewhere doing things like that. And it never happened to me until that time, and it hasn't happened to me since.
All right, Bill?
What's some of the favorite championships you've won over the years?
Let's see. I've only won 2 in my career. One of them was for Primo's Hardcore Wrestling. I was the second person to become the champion of their 303 division, which was a pretty unique concept, but eventually became quite frustrating, as the division was based entirely around triple threat matches, which it's definitely challenging. But it's challenging enough working one person, but taking a second person into account with that, it's definitely interesting, and doing that every single time, trying to figure out how to keep things fresh with that concept. Of course, the main thing about something like that, just like any other match, is realizing who you're working with, what their strengths are, what their persona is, how they work, and just finding a good way to have it really balance against how everybody can work to their strengths, and just making it as entertaining as you can. Which it's definitely not easy, but I'll say one of the benefits of multi-man matches, when you do it right, it definitely gives you a little more breathing room, because you can do kind of a one-on, one-off. There's always kind of the odd man out, so it gives you a little bit of breaks here and there. And when you do it right, it definitely can help contribute to a good story. The only asterisk I'd put to that is that belt was actually something that I held while I was under the Great Raiden gimmick. So Ronin was not a 303 division champion, but still, I got the opportunity to carry that belt for a while, do the best that I could, and to help bring up that division as one of its, pioneers, for for a lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So I definitely look on it with good memories. I worked with a lot of great people and definitely had some pretty fun moments in there. The only other belts that I held and technically still hold is for a small company up in not North Dakota, in Wyoming called Big Sky Wrestling,
Okay.
where I was the first person to be the heavyweight champion. Unfortunately, just due to things like the plague that we got not too long ago, and of course, again, the whole money thing is always going to be a factor. Things just didn't really take off like it was like they were hoping to with that company. So I never got the chance to give somebody else a run with it. So it's still sitting on my shelf. Would have been nice to have some opportunity to see who else might be able to be the next person to kind of carry the torch for the company and see where it went from there. But real life stuff happens, and sadly, it was not meant to be.
Gotcha. So we're gonna go back into the chat to the people that are watching. I've had up to 18 people. We have, but Dan Fenley has this question to ask you, man. Dream opponent, and what would the stipulations be?
Oh, let's see. As far as dream matches, well, one I did already have was one of my last matches before I eventually retired. Was back in 2021 for a Rocky Mountain Pros Shocktober pay-per-view, where I got the opportunity to work in a mixed tag match with my sister Lilith Grimm against my good friend Reagan Grimes and none other than Gangrel, which, needless to say, had me freaking out for a good while, and it took me a while to really realize I've got this opportunity to do this. And my only regret is that I feel like the match could have and honestly should have happened 10 years before, back before I had any more serious injuries than I did at that time. And I was in, of course, better shape and what have you. But the fact that I can say I went out there, gave the best I could, and nobody was angry by the time the match was over, I kind of consider that a bit of a win in my book. Right. But aside from that, if we're talking, literal dream match, there's no restrictions, no time frames. It would absolutely have to be Bret Hart, who is the biggest inspiration to me as a professional wrestler. I was a huge fan of his ever since I started watching him, discovering his singles run. Things like his match with Owen Hart at WrestleMania, the greatest WrestleMania opening match of all time, cannot be argued. His feud with Owen Hart was some of the best storytelling during that particularly more or less weak era of the WWF. So being that he was not a bigger guy, he was not a flashy guy, that's something that spoke to me, even though I had rather a bit of a flamboyant persona myself. The fact that he was someone who was more grounded in reality. He didn't yell and scream in his promos like other guys. A lot of people will say he wasn't a great talker. I think he was an incredible talker for the way that he did it. He was that, not every man type of persona, but he was someone who was grounded, someone you could believe what he said. He spoke from the heart, no pun intended. And so if I got the opportunity to go back and wrestle anyone at any time, it would absolutely be him. I would almost want to say I would love to work in some type of a long form match. I wouldn't go so far as to say an Iron Man match, because even at my best, I probably could not hang with him. But some type of match, maybe a submission only match or something along those lines. Because Bret, he can work with just about anybody, make them look better than they were or better than they weren't in some cases. And being able to work with someone like that, and I'm not saying I have worked with some guys who I was not on their level, and they made me definitely look better than I was. I would just love to be able to work with someone like Bret, who he was a guy who was not afraid to give even underneath guys he was working with, a bit of offense and make them look good. His matches like with Hakushi, his match on Monday Night Raw with the 1-2-3 Kid, an absolute classic. So being able to work with someone like that, would absolutely be a dream for me, just as a Hitman fan.
Yeah. On a Huge Pop Entertainment, we use the phrase, he can wrestle a mop and make it look good.
Absolutely.
And I can name there's a lot
they
of
say guys like Ric Flair can do it. Bret absolutely could do it.
100%.
Yeah. So we're talking about the business, the game of professional wrestling, and how do you feel when the public still thinks wrestling is all fake, ignoring the real physical risks that you guys take in the ring?
Well, at this point, honestly, you can just let people believe whatever they want because they don't have the stones to try and do what it is that we do, what I did. So if people want to criticize, that's perfectly fine. But for those of us who know, those of us who do have done, no, we know the truth. Say it to my face in public, you might get a little bit of a less diplomatic reaction because unfortunately that's just still kind of how I am. You know,
Right.
that good old John Stossel special. I can't say I would not be averse to, but in general, at this point, it's not even something that's worth arguing about. Since the curtain was dropped so long ago, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But the fact is, we it's like those who know the truth, and those who don't matter.
Okay. All right, Bill.
Is there any territories you didn't get to wrestle in that you wish you had?
Let's see. Ideally, I mean, the big thing, which of course, a lot of wrestlers would love to do, what I would have loved to have done is to, even for just one brief moment, to say that I wrestled in Japan. Of course, I admit I was never near that level, even at would be considered my best to be able to compete somewhere there. But just to be able to say that I tried, it didn't work, but I did it. But unfortunately, that's just one of those opportunities that just didn't present itself, and I admit I would not have had what it takes. But to be able to say I at least tried would have been something. But what can you do?
So now, when you guys get into the ring, you get to the arena, and you're getting ready for this match. You find out who you're going to wrestle. You probably know that the day before. Would you rather call the match in the ring, or would you rather work through it in the back area before you go out there?
For that, it definitely depends. Sometimes we do know in advance, who we're working with, what the shows are looking like. But when it comes to the indies, sometimes you don't know until the day of, and sometimes even if you do know ahead of time, things happen, and it definitely. I'm definitely no stranger to seeing cards that have been crossed out and remarked because people didn't show, or they aren't able to work, injuries, what have you. So it's definitely definitely something you get used to as far as a change of opponents, change of matches, and that is where being able to call stuff in the ring definitely comes in handy. Also, if you're working with someone who may be at your same skill level, if not better, who is absolutely comfortable with doing stuff on the fly. You know your stuff, they know their stuff, and it's just easier to kind of communicate. And of course, when it comes to calling in the ring, working on the fly, you make a mistake, you can easily think of something to cover it up, take a breath, and then just pick up where you are and do something different. Whereas if you call everything in the back, which a lot of guys like to do, I'll admit I did like doing that sometimes. One of the big issues that a lot of people will say that when you plan out everything in the back, there are some people who will have a habit if you slip up, if you make a mistake, blow a spot, whatever, people tend to have just have it burned into their brain of what they had planned, that they will just go right back to what they were doing because they don't have the ability to think on the fly like that. And it can absolutely kind of take you out of the moment as a spectator. Planning stuff ahead of time definitely can be a plus, depending on who you're working with. If you're working with someone a bit newer, you want to give them just a couple things and try to call a little bit on the fly. But it definitely, for the most part, has to do with who you're working with, what type of match it is. So there's a lot of factors involved. So that's something you really kind of take on a match by match basis as far as how you want to call it.
Okay. Bill.
Is there any titles you wish you won that you didn't get?
Let's see.
For some of the promotions you did work for.
Let's see. Probably the big ones would be another Colorado company, IWF Promotions. I worked for them for a good long while. not long after I moved out to Colorado, which was, I say 2008 until they closed in, let's say 2011, 2012. Dates get kind of foggy these days, but I had a couple of a couple of good storylines where it seemed like title matches would be would be on the horizon, be it tag matches or mostly singles. I was involved in a storyline which was a lot of fun that was for the IWF title, which led to me having a match with the champion at the time, Trajan Ender. God rest him, was one of the coolest people I have come across in wrestling, one of the nicest guys. Probably one of my favorite matches of all time that I have had. But we had him and I think we had a really good chemistry. We managed to tell a pretty good story, which ended in a screw job finish, which the fans absolutely hated. Which is, of course, the kind of reaction you want to get, being that he was working as a heel champion. But for me, I feel like that definitely could have led to a good storyline where I look for getting payback, get a rematch, and all that. But unfortunately, that one wasn't to be. But at least I can say I had a really great match with someone who unfortunately isn't here anymore. So aside from the IWF title, of course, the Rocky Mountain Pro title, which would have been probably a really big deal for me, with everything that that I had kind of been through over the years, and finding, for more lack of a better term, a home with Rocky Mountain Pro, with so many incredible people, and just the level of product that they strove to put out time and time again, to be able to to be that top guy, even just for a brief moment, and kind of etch my name in that history book, and just be able to be looked at as this one time in this company with all of these people, I was given the opportunity just to hold that brass ring for a moment. Definitely would have been the capper for my career, but unfortunately, by that time, I was definitely not in the best of shape. Back and neck injuries that I had, so I definitely just could not go as well as I could have back in the day. So it kind of is what it is. You got to know your limitations as you get older.
Yeah, absolutely. So we call it when the show's called Huge Pop. So I love asking this question because what is your huge pop moment of your career?
Let's see. I'd say probably my biggest pop probably was in Rocky Mountain Pro, where there was a storyline I was involved in where it was pretty sure it was a battle royal where the winner got a guaranteed contract for a excuse me, for a shot at the charge championship, which was like the secondary title in the company. So the original idea was I was gonna I would hold on to it, eventually cash in the contract for that title match. When the time was right. I was working as a heel with my little faction around me, which helped me win the battle royal and get me that title match. But unfortunately, there was a change of plans with the person who was going to be challenging for the charge title at the time. So they needed someone to step in and kind of help fill that spot for the show. So after the champion had his match, I came out. I started cutting a promo about challenging for the title, and by the time the promo was over, just the way that I paced it out, hitting all those points that you really want to hit, the where, the when, the why. Right. And as I cut the promo, I managed to build it and build it and build it. By the time I hit my peak at the end of that promo, despite being a heel, Nat charisma is charisma. The crowd just absolutely loved it. That's something I'm definitely proud of. Admittedly, I was never the best worker, but when it came to promo skills, I think there really were few in the company who could touch me. And I like to think I'm not the only one that would admit that, having been compared by other people to none other than Jake Roberts, which was probably one of the biggest compliments I could have ever been received.
Wow. goes down to this next question. My guy in the chat just asked, what's the worst receipt you've ever received or given?
Oh,
boy.
Let's see. I can't think of say a whole lot necessarily as far as giving or getting a receipt because something went wrong. Because I've worked with so many great people. There haven't been a lot of issues. The only thing that really comes to mind as far as being a receipt was I was working a hardcore match, one of the very few I ever worked for, Primo's Hardcore Wrestling, for what they called Carnival, which was a gimmick infringement show where everybody dressed up as their favorite wrestlers and such. The first year that they did that show, I dressed up as the Great Muta, which led to my riding gimmick. 1 year, it was probably I think maybe the second year that we did it, I decided to dress up as Raven, who also was a big influence in me as a worker, as a talker. Me and geez, my memory's getting so bad these days. Goes to show the concussions are very real. It was me and Rob Buster, yeah, that's who it was, who decided to dress up as Tommy Dreamer. So we did an old school ECW hardcore brawl during the match. I take a shot, bump to the outside. He follows me out with a chair, and of course I know what's coming because of this type of match that we're doing. He throws the chair. Get my hands up best I can to protect myself. Didn't do me any good because he just swung for the fences. And when I went back and watched the video, I could see how my body literally just flew backwards against the ring apron. So I just took that full force, hands or no hands. Last time I ever got a concussion, which was a fun couple days after that. But afterwards, after that, we worked the rest of our match. I ended up getting my hands on a chair. Yes, I started to just show it off. So he knew what was coming because you don't want to sneak attack somebody legit with that. So I just gave him a chair shot back. Ended up giving him a bit of a concussion. But yeah, technically it was a receipt, but that was just more. That's just kind of what you do. If you're doing an ECW type match, you still want to tell a bit of a story, so it wasn't all weapons and weapons, gaga, what have you. So he gave me a shot, I gave him a shot. After the match was over, we were all good.
So I am gonna pause for a minute and not let Bill ask a question. I was looking over here at my Facebook while you were saying what you said, and so I'm going to go into a topic that I want to talk about. And I know Bill is a custom design. He custom designs figures. And I heard that you did. I think that you like collecting figures, and I don't know if you dabbed in some custom designs, but we'll get to you in a minute. But I have to show these pictures because my buddy Buck Bresner is on Facebook, and here's some stuff that is.
Boy.
There you go. That's and then this is another Buck Bresner that Bill. And let me read you what Buck Bresner said. My manufacturer, Bill Struthers, Struthers, has informed me that there is an action figure available for purchase. They gave you the price. I'll let you guys reach out to Bill or Buck. Orders are available, and if you're interested, please inbox me the information. I will pass along to Bill. He makes them in his shop, and I will find out how to arrange the payment. He did a really great job. Here's what I want to hear, guys. He did a really great job making this, and I thank you for the support and standing behind me. Have a blessed week. The Giant One out. These are some things that it's impressed me that Bill does. So let's talk about custom figures. Let's talk about your hobby. I guess I would believe your hobby is collecting figures. Am I right?
Yep, it's mostly collecting. I definitely do customizing as well. It's a nice way to kind of keep my hands as nimble as they can be after all these years. Painting is not as easy as it used to be, but it's definitely still something that I enjoy doing. Being able to make figures that never got a release in a particular line. I'm mainly into the Jack Specific era figures, the classic superstars, Ruthless Aggression, Deluxe Aggression. I'd say maybe honestly, probably maybe at least 95% of my collection is the Jack's Deluxe Aggression style figures. Most of them, well, at least half, I'd say, are customs that I've made. It's definitely a lot of fun to do, just taking the figures apart, putting them together, painting, decals, and just being able to put them up on my shelf. I think the last time I updated my little checklist of figures I've made or I'm planning, I think counting tag teams as individual figures, of course, I think I'm somewhere around 150 and kind of still climbing. But it definitely takes a lot of time to do since I want to do so many all the time, and it's definitely not cheap, but it's a lot of fun to say the least.
So,
Bill.
well, I can make his life a little cheaper. I got 2 totes of Jacks I want to get rid of right now.
Oh, nice.
There you go. We're making deals on the Huge Pop Entertainment. Let me tell you, this is fun. I would not. I can do what you guys do. I look at these things and painting that looks like tedious work. So I applaud you and Bill for all that
Thank you.
tedious work that you guys do. That's something I don't want to do, but I enjoy looking at other stuff, and it's just pretty cool. So I got a bunch of quick fire questions. You ready?
All right.
In your career, was it a big spot or technical wrestling that you enjoyed more?
I was definitely more into the technical wrestling. I was never a huge spot fest type of guy. I like watching those from time to time, but for me, I was never an incredibly fast guy or agile guy, even when I was lighter, thinner. But I definitely liked the technical base, mainly because I'm a big fan of guys like Brett, Benoit. So that was definitely kind of more my style. I wasn't afraid to fly once in a while, but it was very rare.
Would you rather cut promos or do in-ring work?
Let's see. At this point, I'd be perfectly happy doing like manager type stuff where I can rely on cutting promos and being able to use my best talent, which is my my double jointed silver tongue.
Wow, didn't expect that.
That's great. That's great.
Titles or crowd reaction?
I'd have to say the crowd reaction. Titles, they have to say what you want, whether they're props or not. To me, they definitely do mean something. But the titles come and go. But the memories that you leave in the audience when you make them react, that's something that they'll never forget.
Okay. Are you a signature move or a weapon guy?
Definitely signature move. I was never a huge hardcore guy. Like I said, I only did maybe 1 or 2 hardcore matches in my whole career. I understand there's a place for it where it belongs. It was never my thing, trying to maximize the time I have with my body.
Okay. Here's one of my favorites. I asked this because my kids asked me to ask this. A chair shot or stepping on Legos that we leave on the floor?
Well, let's see. Lord knows I've done both. Honestly, I'd rather get hit in the head with a chair again than step on Legos, because that's a whole other type of pain. I think the main issue with that is, with the feet, you're dealing with pressure points and whatnot. So you step on something the wrong way, that definitely is gonna leave more of a lasting pain.
Pineapple on your pizza. Do you like pineapple on your pizza?
Oh, hell no! You're talking to a guy who's part Italian, from New Jersey. My family's from New York. I've had the best pizza there is, which is in New York. Can't argue that. So it's like something like that. To me, it's blasphemy.
Okay. Another kid question. Ask him if he likes energy drinks or coffee.
And I am not an energy drink guy. I used to enjoy them here and there, but when you get old, you really can't drink those like you used to. I grew up drinking coffee and having bagels in the morning for breakfast. So I definitely am an absolute coffee guy.
When you're traveling, what's your favorite snack on the road? One of my kids wants to know this.
Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see. I think the ones that I usually would pick up, aside from getting stuff on the way like burgers and what have you, I say beef jerky was probably my main go-to, because that's something that you can. It's not cheap, that's for sure. So you learn how to make it last. Give it a good chew, let it sit for a while, and kind of let that flavor just come on out.
When you talk about beef jerky, I talk about I think Bucky's, the jerky wall. from heaven.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of Bucky's. I've been meaning to check out one of those.
Dude, if you like jerky, go to Bucky's, and I'm telling you, you have a wall that's probably 15 feet long and 10 feet high, bro, and it's full of all kinds of jerky. I'm just saying.
Oh, it definitely sounds that sounds like heaven.
I have a loaded question for the last. So, Bill, do you have any more questions before I ask my last loaded question?
Is your loaded question about his retirement?
Could be.
I wanted to hit on that.
Go ahead.
Not too deep, but how did the retirement come about?
Let's see. Honestly, I think that was something that was, looking back, it was probably a long time coming. Thinking I probably should have retired sooner than I did, just due to a lot of personal issues that happened a long time ago, which in a way, I'll admit, definitely kind of dimmed my love for professional wrestling. Nothing that happened because of wrestling directly, but when people, when people start dying a lot sooner than they should, that definitely takes a toll on you, and especially when it's your when it's your significant other who's your biggest fan, your biggest supporter, who sits through a lot of bullshit so you can pursue your dream, and then when they're suddenly gone, it definitely kind of leaves a bit of a gap. But I think for me, I just didn't know what else to do, so I just kind of kept along, and just kind of stayed in the ring because I just didn't know what else to really do with myself. But looking back, I probably should have retired sooner just because of all the issues that I have now. On top of that, all my physical problems. If I had retired sooner, sure, there would have been some moments that I wouldn't have had, like being able to say I worked with Gangrel and doing all the promo stuff that I did for Rocky Mountain Pro and having that last nice run that I did. But hindsight kind of is what it is. You don't know any better until you've already done it. So aside from the fact that was something that was stewing for a while, I just kind of had one of those moments where you think you kind of realize there is only so far that you can go or have gone, and just a lot of things going on where you really try to focus on your real future. Thinking about your physical and especially mental well-being. Thinking about you got to be able to still earn a paycheck and do all that real world crap. So eventually I realized I'm not going to get any further. I'm surprised I got as far as I did. So just kind of hit a bit of a breaking point where I just had to just step away completely and kind of just call it quits.
So I'm going to piggyback off of that and ask these questions. Looking back, and even now, do you have any regrets? And is there anything you need to get off your chest before we close the show?
In business like this, I think there's always going to be regrets because you always think to yourself, you've got more time. There's always more that you can do. There's more that you should have been able to do, more opportunities that you should have been given. Every single one of us, no matter how much we may accomplish, we're always going to have that mentality because, it is pretty much like a drug, or more appropriately, an abusive relationship where you always feel like you can get more out of it. And you just have to really kind of not think that way. You just have to think about what you did accomplish and just to try to live with that. But, I guess when you think about it, all in all, things probably could be worse, I guess.
Well, I appreciate your time, man. I appreciate your answers, your answer to questions. You sound like a cool dude, man. I appreciate the time that you
it's my
shared
pleasure.
with us. And, we're going to close the show, man. Bill, you have anything else to say?
No, that's all I got tonight.
So again, Ronin, I appreciate you coming on the show. I know it was, we took some of your time, and I'm intrigued. I can't even see your face, but I love the image. And you talk about your lifestyle. You got me intrigued, man, about it's crazy, but I love that you shared. You were open to share your life. That a lot of people wouldn't do that, and I appreciate you doing that, man.
That's my pleasure. I'm not always the sharing type. Unfortunately, I've been through. We all go through a lot of things in life where you tend to kind of close off. But for the right people, for the right reasons, definitely doesn't hurt to open up a bit, and it's definitely been a pleasure.
Thank you, man. And you guys at Huge Pop Entertainment, Bill and I will be back next week with Vicky Otis, if I'm right.
Yes.
Vicky Otis
Princess
is next
Victoria.
week. Princess Victoria, and then we have on the. Just telling you what we have on. Bill's better on that than I am. He keeps it all on his board here. But I love doing it. January 7th. I love doing the shows. I love who?
Pitbull number one, Gary Wolf.
Pitbull number one. So keep in tune with the Huge Pop Entertainment, because when we do Huge Pop Entertainment, right, we do it for life.